Hi, it's Joy. Welcome back to Whimsy Stamps. Today I'm sharing 2 cards with you using the Sushi Time stamp set. I love this little stamp set and all of its little, I guess sushi rolls would be the right way to say this. I colored this with Copics off camera. And in addition to Sushi Time, I'm using the Comic Speech Bubbles die, the Slimline Zigzag die, as well as the Chippy Paint background stamp to create 2 different backgrounds for my projects. I'm also using Distress Oxides in the colors of Crackling Campfire, Ripe Persimmon, Walnut Stain, and then a Distress ink in the color of Crackling Campfire. For my first background, I start out by blending Walnut Stain Distress Oxide to the top 1/3 of the card. I am blending this onto smooth cardstock, the same that you would use to stamp or Copic color. And again, I put down 1 heavy blend of this walnut stain to the top 1/3 to almost 1/2. And that's because I am going to overlap the Crackling Campfire, which happens to be next. So when I blend inks, I always overlap them 1 color into the next, creating almost a 3rd color. And I find that this is the best way to get a blend. Now, I always go back over and blend every color twice. So when you're seeing this kind of a harsh blend right now, it's because I have the intention of going back. Even when I Copic color or even use like watercolor, a lot of times I will go back and blend a 2nd time, even a 3rd time, so that I get a seamless blend. And that's just a tip that you can take away from this. I am now bringing in the Ripe Persimmon, which is just a hair lighter than the Crackling Campfire, so you're not going to get a huge difference in this. Now, if you wanted to go with an ombre look, you could blend this all the way down to white. I want a very bold background. I tend to gravitate to really saturated dark colors, but again, you could do this however you see fit. And you can tell that I'm maybe not feeling well. I'm going to tell you that I left in all of my mistakes because I believe in that. And I will tell you, I am not on my game because of that. But these cards actually turn out really, really cute. So the moral of the story with this card is, or cards, I should say, is if you don't necessarily get all of the steps right, keep going, because you're going to end up with incredible cards at the end. Here I am spritzing the panel with water, and then I mop that up and dry it. I am speeding up the 2nd panel. The 2nd panel I am using Crackling Campfire and Ripe Persimmon half and half with the Distress Oxides and the Dome Foam blenders using the exact same paper. And I'm just getting the color down because this is where my next background technique is going to come in. I bring in the Chippy Paint background stamp, and I have this on my glass mat. And I am taking Crackling Campfire Distress ink. So Distress ink is a little bit more vibrant and less milky looking than the oxides. So I lay this directly down, and using a scratch piece of paper, I then rub my hand over that so that I'm not getting the excess ink onto my hand. And then I very carefully, once I'm done getting a good impression with this, peel this up from the background stamp. And here you can see how that Distress ink really shows up on there. I cleaned my stamp off, and now I'm using the Walnut Stain, doing the exact same thing, using a scratch piece of paper to avoid getting it all over my hands. And I'm on just plain white cardstock. I'm getting the background. Now you're going to see I didn't get as good of an impression. That's okay. This is just a background. I just wanted interest. My next step is to die cut the large Comic Speech bubble. And I put that to the top portion of my ombre or 3-tone card panel. So this is back to the first one. And you're going to see that it's overhanging. And I end up trimming that off so that it is a clean cut. I do that off camera. Also, you saw that I got some glue on there. Barely Art glue is water-based, so it did react with my background, but it really overall did not affect it. Here's where I'm making my mistakes. I put down my foam sheets, and I am adhering my card to the card base, and I forgot to do the sentiment. Luckily, I was able to remove the mouse pad from my Misty, and I was able to stamp the Let's Roll sentiment in here. Now, I am speeding this process up by 2 times because I fiddled with this way too long. I went with originally 4 of the components, and something was missing, so I come in with my Distress ink crackling campfire, and I go to splatter, because in my mind, splatter always fixes everything. Boy, was I wrong. So first I lucked out that I got a good impression with my sentiment. Now I splattered, and here I come in and I bring in this little sushi roll, and here's the magic number. This finished it off. Now we're going back to the second panel and using the slimline zigzag thing. I am die cutting about 1/3 of the bottom off, and then I am adhering that to the top portion of the walnut stain white background, and you're going to see I got a really cool background. Now you could leave it right here, but then I decided to bring in a portion of the zigzag, and I put that down along the bottom, and I love this. I think this really turned out cool. I'm glad that I stuck with my plan on this one. Here I did the right thing, and I am stamping down Sushi Time. I did have to do a second impression for the stamping because I did not prime my stamp, which is no big deal because I'm using this Misty. I make sure my paper's in exactly the same spot, make sure it didn't shift, and then here I come in and I make sure I use my fist. I make sure I get a really good impression with Sushi Time, and voila, it turned out perfect. So I'm glad you got to see some of my mistakes. If you've had a good time at my expense, I really would appreciate it if you would leave me a comment, maybe a thumbs up, consider subscribing. We at Whimsy love hanging out with you guys, and we love it when you come back and see us. So I then take the soy sauce and I glue that down, and then I pop up 2 of the rice pieces. You can tell I'm not a sushi eater because I don't know what the right names of any of these are, but they are adorable. I just love them. And then I add some rhinestones from my stash, and I'm just applying that with a craft pick tool. And I fiddle with that again, probably a little bit longer than I have to. And I just put those down with barely art glue because it dries clear and you don't see them when it dries. I do the exact same thing with the second card, but I spared you that. Here are some last looks of my 2 cards. I think that they turned out amazing, despite the fact that I had some twists and turns. You'll have to let me know what you think about it. Again, until next time, keep crafting. Bye-bye, friends. Have a good day.